What's going on, guys? The Open number 2 for Rlcs 2025 has concluded in all 7 regions. So now it's my favorite time of the year. We're talking major scenarios of how you could possibly clinch for teams that are up in those spots and for how other teams can catch up to those spots to clinch the Birmingham major, or Birmingham. I can't say it. I don't know. It's the Hamland. We all know it. We all love it. We all want every team to go there. But there's only 16 spots. So let's break it down with what each region has to do with their points in order to get those spots. We'll start on the smaller regions or the weaker regions, and then we'll move up. So as you can see with this screen here, we will start with SSA. We will follow with North America, of course. So let's talk about Maestros, formerly T-Mobile, who was dominating APAC. They have taken their world conquering skills over to SSA. 2 notes really quick. Right above me is the placement points that you get per open. So open number 3, first 15, second 10, so on and so forth. You know the point gaps. We're going to kind of spitball this. We're not going to read out every single thing that can possibly happen, because honestly, I feel like those are a waste of time, and it's more about the realistic chances. And then if there is some crazy underdog story, you can kind of readjust on the weekend of that tournament. So Maestros and Limitless are the only 2 teams that can possibly get the 1 SSA spot there is. Because Hey with Riz or Hey cannot get that spot. Because if they get 15 points, they're at 29. So Maestros at 30, looking pretty. They've won the first 2 opens. They need a top 4, and they will just clinch. Limitless cannot catch them. Limitless needs to win. And then they have to hope Maestros falls to at least a 5th place spot for a tiebreaker or any further down. The one thing that I'm not a huge fan of with this format that we have right now is these placement matches. I think it probably won't happen in a lot of these regions, but the chance of people trying to manipulate brackets is way, way higher because of these placement matches than it would be without them. So personally, I don't think placement matches are needed, and I think it's just going to open up a can of worms for things like this. Hopefully everyone just plays to the best of their ability, but you never know. It won't happen here because Maestros, if they just win, they'll never face that lower bracket, so it won't really matter. So Maestros in complete domination there. We'll look over at the APAC region next, and that is exactly the same, basically. Luminosity and Elevate are the only 2 teams that have a chance. Elevate with 2 grand finals, Luminosity with 2 open wins. Elevate needs, again, a 1st place and a 5th from Luminosity in order for a tiebreaker or anything worse for Luminosity to win it outright. Luminosity just needs the top 4, and they will clinch. So that is the 2 1-spot regions for APAC and SSA. Moving on to the MENA region, it says Open 3 because Liquipedia for some reason won't update for Open 2, but these are the points after Open 2. Falcons and Twisted Minds, they've both won an Open at this point, which basically means every other team in this region is very, very sad because they would have hoped that one of them would dominate, the other one would be a lot closer. Basically, Team X, they were hoping Twisted Minds would be at 20 points right now, and then that's a much easier gap to close. But right now, it's looking almost near impossible that these 2 teams don't make it. Team X is the closest. They're 11 points down. So they have to win, and then they have to hope for a 7th, 8th place spot from one of the 2 at least. They don't need both to fall that far, Falcons and Twisted Minds. They just need one of them. So it's a possibility, but that's what Team X needs. For a team like MTS, they would need even more. They are 13 points down. So they would need them to finish in the 9th place spot and force a tiebreaker or somewhere worse. Now, again, points are not guaranteed. You still have to qualify for every open. So even teams like Awawa and Al-Qadai Sasaya, I'm terrible with my pronunciation. They both technically are alive. They could win the open. If Team Falcons or Twisted Minds does not make the open, there's a possibility there, right? But, it's very likely. We already have our 2 teams, Falcons and Twisted Minds, with Team X with a small outside shot if they win the whole thing, and if one of those teams, Falcons or Twisted Minds, somehow falters and finishes in the 8th place spot. Moving on. Next one up is South America. So Furia with 2 open titles. Team Secret with 2 grand finals. Very similar to APAC and SSA. We have 2 dominant teams where one always wins, but there's 2 spots, so it changes things a little bit. Golfidence is sitting at 12 points. The thing is, a lot of SAM below those two have kind of traded points around. So they have made their point gaps very, very high. But Golfidence, they're 8 points down from Team Secret. They need to win the regional, and then they need Team Secret to finish third, fourth to at least force a tiebreaker, as you can see with the point gaps above me. That's not out of the realm of possibility, I would say, because if Golfidence does win, they're probably going to have to take down teams like Team Secret to get there. So if they meet in that top 4 round, still an outside shot, right? Then we have 3 teams at 10 points. They would need even more. They would need to win. They would need Team Secret to finish 5th or 6th. Like, if you do win, though, keep in mind, like, even if there's teams above you, that 5-point gap in the grand finals is huge. As long as you're within 5 points of teams above you, as long as you win, it doesn't matter what they do. They are just like, you don't have to worry about them at all. So those teams at 10, they need to win, and then they just need to worry about Team Secret. They need to have them falter pretty hard, down to a 8th place spot to win it outright, or a 5th, 6th spot to force a tiebreaker. So that is SSA. I'm sorry, South America. Only one S and an A. Anyway, moving on. OCE, we got Team Wildcard is sitting pretty, sort of. They're sitting at 22 points. They just got a top 4 result. Scrims Worlds out of nowhere winning the last open, so hats off to them. Puts them into one of those 2 spots, but it is very, very tight. This is the tightest region out of the smaller pool of teams that could possibly go. So you got the healthy Chiefs, TSM are the 2 teams very likely in the running. So these are the 4 teams that you're going to be worrying about. Wildcard has a pretty nice gap, 5-point gap over those 2. But again, 5-point gaps are not really that safe. If you win an open, you automatically climb 5 points on literally every team. So healthy Chiefs, TSM are both trying to win. If they win the open, they guarantee at the bare minimum a tiebreaker, a 3-way tiebreaker, I believe. Because, all right, say healthy Chiefs, or let's say TSM. TSM wins. They get first place. If they played wildcard in the finals, then the 2 of them would tie in points. And then Scrims Worlds would be out. So they would just clinch, right? If they played Scrim Worlds, actually, yeah, then I think they just clinch. So if they play Scrim Worlds, they would pass them either way. They would also pass Wildcard. So yes, let's reiterate. TSM and Healthy Chiefs, all they have to do is win. If they win the open, they are in. That is it. That is all they have to do. So I take it back what I said earlier about tiebreakers. More realistically, say Wildcard wins, right? We'll just put them at the 15. Then you start looking at the other point gaps, right? If you make it grand finals, 10, but it's a 3-point gap to 3rd and 4th. That is huge because Healthy Chiefs and TSM, if they can get to the grand finals and Scrim Worlds makes top 4, then you have a tie break there, right? They are only 1 place down if it's between grand finals and 3rd, 4th. If it's 3rd, 4th, and 5th, then Scrims Worlds would actually win by 1 point, right? Because those are only 2-point gaps. There's only a 3-point gap right before grand finals, and then obviously that giant 5-point gap. So we'll reiterate, TSM, like if you win the open, you have clinched a spot. Healthy Chiefs, if you win the open, you have clinched a spot. Scrim Worlds, if they make grand finals, they still haven't technically qualified, because if they lose to Healthy Chiefs or TSM, actually, no, I'm sorry. Let me take that back. Scrim Worlds, if you make grand finals, you have clinched a spot as well, because if it's not Wildcard loses 3 points to Scrims Worlds, and they would pass them. So Scrims needs a grand finals to clinch. Healthy Chiefs and TSM need to win to clinch. Wildcard would clinch with the grand finals as well. 3rd, 4th will not have them clinch just yet, because Scrim Worlds could face off against Healthy Chiefs or TSM in the finals. So let's look at that real quick. Wild card, if they get a 3rd, 4th place finish, they would be at 29 points. If Scrim Worlds makes it to the grand finals, they would be at 30 points. And then Healthy Chiefs and TSM, if either of them beat Scrims Worlds, they would be at 32 points. So Wildcard also needs to make it to the grand finals in order to clinch their spot. Obviously, a lot of things will change based on where these teams land. But those are the 4 teams that you are looking at. Hopefully I didn't confuse people too much. This is the downside of doing it just off the cuff, but I have more fun doing it this way. So we're going to move on. North America. Let's talk about them. Energy, very, very dominant. They have clinched a major spot already, sitting at 30 points. The Ultimates. I don't know if I said, but Furia has also clinched. If I didn't mention that before, in South America. Energy, 30 points. Looking great. They've clinched at least a top 2 seed for North America. If the Ultimates win the last Open and Energy doesn't even qualify for the Open, Ultimates will take over that 1 seed. But if Energy even qualify, they will have the number 1 seed for North America. Very, very tight race here. Honestly, a ton of teams are alive. I'll look at Team Evo and above, I guess, but deleted gaming even, like, pretty much all these teams, like even like a Shopify Rebellion, like if they win the Open, they're in, right? So if Shopify wins an Open, they are in, or very likely in. I think actually in, but still. Besides points. So, all right, why don't we do this as a workshop? We'll do Shopify Rebellion here real quick, and we'll see if they do actually clinch, if they win. So 15 points, we'll get them to 22. Then say in the grand finals, they play 9 lives, right? Because 9 lives is in that spot. 9 lives would get 10 points. They would tie. But complexity is only 2 points above that. They would only get 7 points. They'd be at 21 points. So they would already move ahead of complexity. And then ultimates could also sit there at 22 points. So they would still qualify over all those teams because of that. So yes, so if Shopify Rebellion win, they are in. Gen G is the only team I think if they win, they are not technically in, or that is the cutoff mark. Gen G, they would be at 20 points. Obviously, if they played 9 lives, they would be at 22 points. Complexity would be at 21 points, being a 3rd place finish. Ultimates would be at 22 points, right? So Gen G would not qualify based on that. So the cutoff is Shopify Rebellion. They would qualify. So, on that note, basically Shopify and Deleted both need to win in order to get in. If they make it grand finals, they'd be at 18 points. It's very unlikely they're in. I guess I wouldn't say very unlikely because, say, 17 points for Shopify Rebellion. Say, like, Energy wins, right? We expect Energy to win. So then you look at all the other teams, right? They have to pass... Deleted, they'll automatically pass them if they make grand finals playing Energy. They would tie Evo at the very least. They would tie Space Station at the very least. 9 lives would be the only team they have to like kind of worry about. And that would be a 5-point thing, right? So 9 lives, if they got 5th place, they would also be at 17 points. If Space Station and Evo got a top 4, they would also be at 17 points. And then you would have a 4-way tie, right? So... it's grand finals or bust for Deleted and Rebellion. It looks better for Deleted. Very likely they would avoid tiebreakers. If a Rebellion made the grand finals, probably their best hope is a tiebreaker. Team Evo, though, they're only 2 points down. That is not very far at all. There could be a lot of tiebreakers here between Complexity, 9 Lives, Space Station, and Team Evo because of the 2-point gaps. If you look at 2-point gaps, that is the most common occurrence in our point gap system, at least towards the top end. Happens if you finish top 8. If you advance 1 round, it's a 2-point gap to 5th, 6th. If you advance 1 round again, that's 3rd, 4th, right? So if Complexity finishes top 8, 9 lives, it finishes right in the middle there, 5th, 6th. Space Station and Evo finish top 4, boom, right there, like all 4 of those teams are tied. That is what you're kind of looking at. Ultimates are looking pretty good. They have a 3-point gap. They have a 5-point gap, really, over Space Station and Team Evo. That is very, very big. That would be like those teams have to make grand finals, and then they would have to finish 5th to at least force a tie there. Also, while other teams are kind of in that mix, right, where there's like a 3-point gap with 9 lives, it just doesn't make a lot of sense that Ultimates would not make it unless they bomb out, right? If they bomb out in 9th, then they're in trouble. If they bomb out in like 7th, 8th, I think they probably still make it 7th, 8th. It just depends on all the teams. But yeah, like Ultimates, if they get top 8, I think they're looking pretty good. Complexity is kind of in that same boat, maybe a tiny bit worse. 9 lives, though, right on the bubble. They basically just have to outplay Space Station and Team Evo. Space Station and Team Evo are going to try to outpace each other, and 9 lives, right? As long as you outplace them by 1 spot, considering very likely they're in the top 8, then at least it forces a tiebreaker. It could force even more if it is to a grand finals or an open win. So that is North America. And finally, we'll end on Europe. We got K-Corp. They've clinched at least a top 2 seed. The only teams that can catch them are Dignitas if they win the Open, if K-Corp doesn't even qualify, which, that's happened before. Or Vitality if they win the Open and K-Corp gets 1 or 2 points. So if they finish 9th, Vitality wins. Vitality would take over the number 1 seed. Looking across here, very, very, very unlikely any team below number 5 is going to make it. The mates sitting at 7 points, very likely have to win the entire thing and get help. So if they win, they get 22 points. If Vitality finishes top 4, they would have 24 points. They would be above them. Dignitas top 4 would tie them. Ninjas and Pajamas, if they met in the grand finals with them, would be at 24 points. So they would pass them too. So it's like, yes, it's like if they win, I would say it's still very likely they make it. But there is ways where Gentlemates would still be out even with a win. And you can say that about every team below them as well, right? 100% Ninja Pajamas, Dignitas are the real teams fighting here, it seems like. Again, Vitality's kind of in that ultimate spot. They're looking pretty decent right now. So again, 2-point gaps, generally speaking, means Dignitas with that 1 extra point over 100% for a 3-point gap rather than a 2-point gap is very, very important. So, Dignitas, if they finish 1 place worse than 100%, and it is not 100% going to the grand finals, they're okay. If Ninjas and Pajamas finishes 1 place worse than 100%, and it's not grand finals, they are not okay. It would be a tiebreaker. So 100%, very likely, will need at least a top 4. And then you would hope that the other teams that are up there, like the 3 other good teams, would still be there. And then they could force a tiebreak, right? So 100% in the top 4 with K-Corp, Vitality, and Dignitas. That at least forces a tiebreak with Ninjas. If they go any further, obviously, that they would be in. But that is what you are hoping for. That is what you're kind of always hoping for. Going into even like an Open 2, like a Space Station case, right? Where you want the good teams to continue to do well. You don't want the points to mix, because if the points mix, 4th place's points go up. If the points don't mix and there's just domination at the top, 4th place points go down. 4th place is a lot easier to obtain if that happens. The only time you want to mix is maybe at that 4th place spot, right? Like you want 3 teams to dominate, then the 4th, like people trading placements. So 100%. In a pretty decent spot. All they got to do, like if they get top 4, they're looking pretty decent. The problem is, if they get a top 4 and Dignitas is in the 5th place spot, 100% is still out if it's Ninjas, Vitality, and K-Corp with them. So 100%, they got to play their game, obviously, but a top 4, I would say, gives them a fighting chance, right? I guess you would say 50-50. All right, in terms of, like, will these other teams make it? Or maybe a little better than 50-50, because some other team could randomly come up, like the mates, and get a top 4. So, but that would force a tiebreaker, but we'll see how that all plays out. Vitality, again, sitting pretty good. They have a 5-point buffer over 100%, but it's not exactly clinched. If they finish 8th and only get 3 points, and then they sit at 20, then things can get hairy if 100% makes the grand finals. Because the other teams can all pass them still. Say 100% goes grand finals, they get 22 points. Vitality, again, if they only had 3 points, would be at 20. Ninjas and Pajamas and Dig both finished 3rd, 4th. They would each move above them as well, 21 and 22 points. So Team Vitality, you want at least a 5th place finish, and you'll secure your spot very, very, very likely. Actually, it might be clinched, at least a tiebreaker at that point. No, actually, probably very likely they're in. But still, that is what we're looking at in Europe. That is the end of all our regions. Hopefully you got some information out of that. If you have any questions, let me know. If I missed anything, which is a possibility. Let me know. And we'll see you probably in a couple days for our power rankings, a global power rankings after Open number 2. I know everyone loves to rag or to compliment them. Usually they're upset with them. I think this time it's pretty much a given of how these placements are going to go, but you never know. Maybe I'll throw a curveball. Maybe I'll try and piss off some NA fans. You just never know. But thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.